Everyone here is either a self-made millionaire or you intend to be in the future. Everybody loves the subject of becoming wealthy. And then I'm going to give you 7 keys to becoming an outstanding leader in this industry and to becoming one of the highest paid people in our society and becoming wealthy. And the wonderful thing is they're not complicated. In order to become a millionaire, you have to become a completely different person. You have to develop character beyond 99% of the people in the world. You have to develop honesty and discipline and quality relationships and the willingness and the ability to work and set priorities and all kinds of stuff, because without that, nothing is possible. It's the first one of all is dream big dreams. You couldn't believe it. Every single person who finally made it's at the turning point in their life. They were driving down the road of life, not making much progress, which is at the 80-20 rule that you hear. 80% of people make 20% of the money. And I'm sorry, 20% of the people make 80% of the money. And what happens at a certain point in life, they change and go on a different road. And here's the turning point. It is making a decision. Make a decision that I'm going to become wealthy. I'm going to become a millionaire, and I will work hard, long hours. I will sacrifice. I will pay the price. I will do everything that is necessary. So I wanted to share with you what I call the 7 C's. So the first C is the CSC of clarity. Clarity is my favorite word in success. It's my favorite word in business. I have done consulting for more than 1,000 corporations, large companies, worldwide companies like IBM, General Motors, PepsiCo, Bank of America. I mean, big companies. And I've also worked with more than 10,000 small and medium-sized companies. And what I found is in every single situation, problems occur when the company becomes unclear about what it is they're doing or how it is they're doing it. And so I've developed a program, which is really just a fun program for me. It's actually called the 2-Day MBA, and it shows 10 different factors of a company. And these are the ones that I learned when I went back to the university in my 30s. And I find that all problems come from a lack of clarity. What is your product? The first question you ask. Who is your customer? What does your customer consider to be more valuable than anything else? How are you superior to your competitors? What can you do to attract more customers? How can you close those customers? Number 2 is write it down. Write it down. Write it down. There's nothing more important than writing down your goals, because if it's not written down, it's merely a fantasy. Now they've done a whole series of studies at Harvard and Yale and Cornell and so on, but the difference between students who type their notes and students who write their notes, the students who write their notes all get straight A's. Students who type their notes forget everything before the end of the day, because writing forces you to use 3 abilities. Your kinesthetic ability, your physical ability of writing, your audio ability. You see it when you're writing it, and your auditory ability, you say it to yourself when you're writing. So you activate the 3 major parts of your brain simultaneously, like a laser beam from a space station, onto a piece of paper, and your subconscious mind accepts it as a command. As a command, and your super God is just mind starts to work on it 24 hours a day. Just write it down, and it's the most amazing darn thing. If all you did was write down one goal and leave this conference, your life will be different forever. And because there are all kinds of things will start to happen, and you'll say, well, that's a coincidence. I just wrote that goal down when I was in that meeting this afternoon, and then I get this phone call or something in the mail, or I saw something on TV, or so it's just phenomenal, phenomenal. So step number 1, write. Decide what you want. Number 2, write it down. Number 3, set a deadline. Tell yourself when you want it. I want this by such and such a date. So every goal always ends with a use, by date. As in, I achieved this goal by this date, and you write it in the present tense. Step number 4 is make a list of everything that you could think of to do. Just make a list. And as you think of more things, add it to the list. Keep writing it down, writing it down. And sometimes you think of something in the middle of the night, write it down. Keep a pad of paper next to your bed and quickly write it down so you don't forget it. Just write it down. Write it down. That's number 4. And this is really important. It's the great turning point, like a massive ship turning in the ocean. Your whole life starts to turn when you write down a list of the steps you're going to have to take. I don't recommend other people's books because I've heard so many myself, and I summarize hundreds of books that I've read over the years. But there is one book that had a great influence on me, and it's called The Checklist Manifesto. Has anybody read this book? The Checklist Manifesto? It was written by a doctor, an emergency ward doctor, and he talks about the value of checklists when you are trying to accomplish a goal, build a business, raise a child, whatever you want to do. He says, create a checklist. He said, everything in the world, this room, car, or swimming pool, everything follows a checklist. Everything requires a checklist to build it. And the wonderful thing about organizing a checklist before you begin work on a project, it has an extraordinary effect on your life. And what he does is he teaches in the most entertaining way how people who do not use checklists died like bankrupt, the most successful people in finance in the world, how they use checklists in order to organize their financial life, business people. Anyway, it's the one book that I would recommend. It's a short book. It's just fascinating reading. It's called The Checklist Manifesto. Anyway, so take your list of rules and organize. Here, this is my priority. Make a checklist with what's number 1, what's number 2, what's number 3, and so on. And as you get more information, change the list. Reorganize it, write it, move things up and down. Step number 5 or step number 6 is to take action on your list. Take action on the most important thing on your list. Do something. Launch. Get going. Do it now. Do it immediately. Get up and do something. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be revising your papers. It could be making a phone call. It can be ordering a book. It could be something. But do something, which is sort of like the kickoff in a football game. Just kick as far as you can. And number 7, and this is going to make you rich, happy, popular, and thin. Number 7 is do something every day on your most important goal. Do something every day on your most important goal. So here's the exercise I'm going to give you to take home with you and do when you leave us. And by the way, from now on, whenever you bring on a new person, put them through this exercise. If they will not go through this exercise, do not waste a minute of your time with them, because they will never be successful if they won't follow your guidance. And here's the exercise. Take a clean sheet of paper and write down goals and today's date. And then write down 10 goals that you would like to accomplish in the next 12 months. Don't worry about 2 years or 10 years or 5 years. Just 10 goals you'd like to accomplish in the next 12 months. And write them in the present tense, almost like you're submitting an order. And just write that: I earn, I achieve, I weigh, I drive such and such a car, I own whatever. It happens to be, and the goals will be financial goals, family goals, physical goals, and so on. Write down 10. And then you take this list of 10 and you say, if I had a magic wand and I could wave this magic wand and I could have any one goal on my list within 24 hours, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on my life? You're over it? And usually this will jump out at you. No, jump back down at you like a spider in a horror movie. It will grab you and put a circle around that goal. And that's a goal you transfer to a clean sheet of paper. And then you follow the 7 steps. Write it down, set a deadline, make a list of everything you have to do to accomplish it, organize the list into a checklist, take action, and then do something every day. If you'll just do this simple exercise, then you'll all be rich. Nothing can stop you but yourself. So number 2, the second C, is the C of competence. And the C of competence says it's very simple, is that you can only earn a lot of money if you're very good at what you do. One of the most important things you do is you break down your work into skills and you say, what are the most important skills I need to have to be successful? And recruiting is a very important skill. Training is an important skill. Managing, motivating is an important skill. Leading, supervising, important skills. So what you do is you think, what are the skills that I will need to be in the top 10% of my field? You don't have to be in the top 1%, just be in the top 10, because there are no successful people who are not good at what they do. They're good at what they do, and they are good at what they do because they work at it all the time. whether you're in sports or whether you're in music or chess or anything else, there's a wonderful study that's been written up, and it's called it'll come to me in a second. I find that because of these pains, my memory slips and it goes around in a circle like a merry-go-round, and it comes around again and it'll come back and there it is. But basically, what it said was, studying the most successful people, is that these people spend 4 more hours becoming good at what they do than average people. The other people don't do it, and that everybody has natural abilities, but the ones who use those abilities transform themselves by really, really working hard and becoming good one skill at a time. This is another thing that's really important. Don't try to be good at everything, because what happens is just breakdown. You're just overwhelmed ourselves and you just give up. You say, oh, I tried that before, and because all skills are learnable and you can learn any skill that you want to learn. And if you just simply find out what others have done before you and practice it. And then I began to recruit other salespeople and teach them the same thing. I said, here's the product. Here's the advantages and benefits for our customers. And here's how to ask them to make a decision. And they became successful. Many of them today are millionaires and multimillionaires. Many of them own multiple businesses. And they've told me, they said, your training when I was in my 20s, going nowhere, broke, changed my life forever. And the most important thing was, I got people just to make a decision. I asked them to make a decision. So many people in this room, I know, have a challenge with closing. We all do when we start off, but that's where you are now. But that's not where we're going to be 3 months from now. 3 months from now, you're going to be so dangerous, you need to be restrained for yourself and the safety of society, because you'll be able to close anybody on anything. And I'm not talking about pressure. I'm not talking about pressure. Do you know what good business is? Here it's helping. What you are is, you are great helpers. You're helping people to improve the quality of their lives and their health and their family. And so when you start to see yourself as a helper, your job is to help people understand how much better off their lives can be if they take your advice and guidance. That's what you do. Earl Nightingale said something many years ago. He said, you don't get what you want in life. He said, you get what you deserve. And so I began to study that, get what you deserve, deserve. And I found that deserve comes from the Latin, and it comes from the words do, which means from service, which means from service. And so you get what you want in life from service to other people. And so the people who serve the most people, the very best, are the ones who make the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. But here's something else. When you help other people improve the quality of your life, your self-esteem goes up and your self-confidence goes up, and you feel happy and you like yourself more and you like other people. It's the most amazing darn thing. You just put your life on this wonderful upward spiral by deserving that people will buy from you, by looking for ways to help them. How can I help this person to improve the quality of their life and their family and their work? So see yourself as a helper, and your job is to deserve more. And you'll find, you look at the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates and the multimillionaires, who are individuals, and you think these people focused. They had this obsession with a product of some kind that would really help people to improve the quality of their lives. And that's all they think about and all they talk about. And the only people who succeed in those companies are people who have the same obsession with customer service. Tom Peterson, in his book In Search of Excellence many years ago, said the most important principle of all was the obsession with customer service. It's these most successful and highest paid people just serving people and helping people improve their lives all the time. So that's the most important level of competence that you want to achieve. First of all, you have clear goals, and then you say, what is it that I really, really love to do that really helps other people to improve the quality of their life? And how can I become really, really good at doing that more? The third CE is the C of concentration. And these are not necessarily in order, but in a way, these are. The C of concentration is your ability to focus, which we talked about before. It's your ability to focus single-mindedly on one thing at a time and to work on that one task until it's complete, and to discipline yourself not to do anything else or to become distracted by emails and bells and bips and noises and things like that. It's just the ability to focus like a laser beam on a single task. Clarity, be absolutely clear about your goals and what you need to do to achieve them, and confidence, become very good at your tasks. And number 3 is concentration. Concentrate single-mindedly on your most important task and stay with it until it's complete. By the way, I could speak for 2 days just on concentration. And I have taught these principles all over the world. That's all that you need. Start and finish your most important task. Number 4 is constraints. Now, constraints are a concept that was developed in Tel Aviv by a management consultant many years ago. And it says that between where you are today and where you want to be sometime in the future, a goal, there is always one constraint or choke point that determines the speed at which you get from here to here. That's the constraint. So the art of life is to identify the constraints that are holding you back from achieving the goals. And it could be something simple like finding a parking space. It could be something simple like getting your shopping done and so on. Continually ask, what is the constraint or limiting factor? It's what they call the limiting factor between here and where you want to go. So you say to yourself, all right, you want to achieve a particular goal. So you ask yourself, what is the one factor that determines the speed at which you achieve that goal? What is the one factor that determines the speed at which you achieve it? And work with your downline, work with your consultants, work with other people, and help them to be absolutely clear. And don't try to change the world. Try to change one thing, one factor. Try to alleviate one time, and that'll change your whole life. So I'm going to give you the other principles that we have. Number 4 is constraints. Number 5 is continuous learning and development. Dedicate yourself to becoming better and better at what you do. It must be a part of your life. You must breathe in, breathe out, and learn new things. Self-made millionaires, self-made billionaires spend 60 to 90 minutes every day, spend 60 to 90 minutes every day studying their field. Warren Buffett was just relegated from number 3 to number 4 richest man in the world, and Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day. Warren Buffett reads 5 to 8 hours a day. Warren Buffett reads 8 hours, 7 days a week. He reads all the time. Number 6 is commitment. And we know this because you've talked about it a lot. Commitment is pretty important. There's no success without commitment, without you putting your whole heart into what you're doing and putting your whole heart into what you're doing for a long time. But if you do, there is no limit on what you can accomplish. You get up in the morning and you make a decision that, my gosh, I am going to succeed in this business, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many hours a day. And number 7 is courage. And courage. Winston Churchill said, warrior courage is rightly considered the foremost of the virtues, for upon it all others depend. And in courage, what you have is 2 parts. The first part of courage is the courage to begin, to launch, to take a chance, to face failure and rejection, to try something with a very great possibility that you will fail and you'll feel embarrassed and upset. And your self-esteem will go down, and so on. But the second part of courage is persistence. It's the power to keep going and keep pushing yourself and driving yourself. So, how do you develop this unshakable quality of persistence, which will guarantee your success in life? Nothing could stop you if you don't quit. If you don't quit, then the only alternative is you must succeed. And eventually, you must succeed greatly. Well, great rule. You become what you think about, but you become what you say to yourself. So what you do is you say to yourself these magic words. You say, I never give up. Say it. Say, I never give up. Never give up.
All successful people are excellent communicators. So how do you communicate more effectively with others?
Now, the first one is a profound communication principle. In the first agreement, say what you mean and mean what you say. Words have the power to create or destroy, and a careless comment can alter a relationship forever. So it's a good idea to choose your words carefully and consider their impact before you put them out there in the world. So before you speak or write, I want you to ask yourself these 4 questions. Is it necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? And is it helpful? And if you don't get yeses to those questions, then don't say it.
One of the things I observe is simply this. A lot of people are very careless with their language. I mean, the words you use either lift up your energy, the words you use either make you more creative, or the words you use deny your talents. Think about the great dictators. Their words of hatred, their words of toxicity, their words of breakdown caused the people around them to do sometimes incredibly terrifying acts. And then you look at people like a Nelson Mandela or a Martin Luther King Jr. or a Mother Teresa. You look at the great business builders. You look at humanitarians. You look at a lot of the great artists, and they were so careful with their words. And their words lifted people up. And that's really what great leaders do. They use the language of leadership. I see this everywhere. Someone very close to me who was a little sloppy with her languaging said, "Oh, I forgot to do this. It's not on my to-do list. I should punch myself in the face." If you say that every day, what's that doing to your self-esteem? If you say that over a lifetime, what's that doing to your self-identity? And as you know, your income is a function of your self-identity. And your performance is a reflection of your personal story. And the way you build your self-architecture and the way you see yourself in the world is in part through your words. You're never going to rise any higher in terms of your impact in the world than the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as average, well, you're not going to read the books, go to the events, do the study, put in the training time, find the mentors, do the work to rise to world class, because you're running an interior psychological story that says you're average and the A players are somehow different from you. If deep down inside you're coming from scarcity and you think, you know what, I'll never have more than the salary that I'm making because of the story that you have through the words you've used, well, then you're not going to go out there and ask for the big order. You're not going to go start the big business. You're not going to read the books on financial mastery, because deep inside you would say, what would be the point? I'm not one of those people. And if you want to rewire your self-identity, so you go out in the world and you're literally operating at legendary, then you absolutely must dial into this first point of what legendary leaders do in terms of the way they speak, which is get your precision of languaging right. Because like I say, the great leaders, how did they transform humanity? It was through their words. How did the great military generals get their armies to go out there on fire? It was through their words. So calibrate your languaging so your words to yourself are world class. And also the words you use to your team, to your customers, to your loved ones. So incredibly important.
And this leads me to the next communication skill that's probably the most critical skill for everyone on the planet to master. And that is the skill of effective listening. Now, the undeniable truth is that so many of us are terrible listeners. And there can never be effective communication without both parties being as focused on the listening part as they are on the speaking part. Because if you aren't really listening and responding to what the other person is actually saying, ultimately all you're really doing is having a conversation with yourself. Now, here's an invaluable tip. Whenever you're having an important conversation, could be with your spouse or your partner, with a child, with an employer, or a customer, or someone on the other side of the political divide, let them go first. Don't interrupt them and argue with them. Let them empty themselves out first. Remember this, you can't pour water into a full glass. You have to let the water out before you can have more put in. Instead, really listen to their point of view. Be curious. How is it that they've come to feel this way, to have this point of view? What is it that they are needing you to hear? Now, this takes a commitment to really want to know what the other person is experiencing and needing. Sometimes when you've done your best to listen closely to someone, you may not have heard exactly what it was they were trying to say. And that's why it's so important for you to double check and make sure you've really understood them correctly. And the easiest way to do that is before you speak to say, so what I'm hearing you say is, and then repeat back to them what you think they were saying, what they meant to say. And then give them the opportunity to clarify any misunderstandings that you might have before you respond to them. So it's always best to make sure you're really responding to what they're really saying.
And the more you practice, again, the quality of your performance is all about the quality of your practice. And the more you actually practice speaking up when you know you want to speak up, the more you will actually step. When you actually speak up with someone and you tell them how you're feeling and you tell them what's most important to you, well, if it's the right relationship, one that's meant to be in your life, whether it's professional or personal, that is really a gateway into the other person.
If you're going to make your point and they're going to make their point, you better have your points organized, because otherwise you are going to look like and be an absolute idiot. You are not going to get anywhere. Teach people to be articulate, because that's the most dangerous thing you can possibly be.
If you're going to speak effectively, you have to know way more than you're talking about. To do that, you have to do a lot of reading. That's on the input side. And then on the output side, well, there's some tricks. There isn't 1,000 people there. There's 1,000 individuals. And so you just look at an individual and you say something, and you can tell if they're engaged. They look confused, or they look interested, or they look angry, or they look bored, and they give you feedback about how you're doing. The people that I've watched in my life who've been spectacularly successful they have skills. Clearly, that's a minimum precondition. But they're also very, very good at articulating themselves. And so whenever they negotiate, they're successful.
They are quiet, self-contained, not particularly expressive. They're sensitive, people-oriented, and concerned about other people's opinions. If you're communicating, this person requires slow, low-key, easygoing, friendly, almost warm and fuzzy.
Now, the third type of person is what we call the director.
And achievement with and through other people. They like to talk about achievement. What are you doing? How did you do it? How did it work? Let me tell you what I did and how it worked for me. Many times they become managers or executives because they have highly integrated personalities. They're very concerned about results, but they're also concerned about people. Now, everybody you meet is in one of these 4 quadrants or groups. The mistake that most people make is that they treat everyone else as if they were just the same as they were. However, no matter which style of communicator you are, 3/4 of the people you meet are something else. Now, there's no right or wrong, better or worse style. These are almost born into people. You can see them in children from an early age. However, your job in asking questions and listening to people is to find out which style they are, and then to practice personality flexibility so that you can get along with a greater number of different types of people.
Somebody's having a bad day and you don't know they're having a bad day. But somebody's really feeling bad and you offer up a kind word. Maybe it's just a friendly, hello, how are you? Maybe it's just taking a minute or two to listen to what somebody has to say. But your few words of kindness or your few minutes of attention could turn somebody's day around, might make them feel more worthwhile, cared for. Be generous with your kindness. It'll go a long way. When you give kindness, it's not gone, it's invested. It'll come back to you 2, 5, 10, 100 times. Kindness, it's so important in every aspect of your life. It's so important in building good relationships with others. Most people won't reveal the problem on the first question. You say, Mary, how are you today? How are things? And she says, well, everything's okay. And you can tell by the way she said it that everything's not okay. And most of us don't want to come right out and say what the real problem is unless 2 criteria are met. Number 1, we're talking to someone we can trust. And number 2, we're talking to someone who really cares. So sometimes it takes that second question, maybe a third, and maybe a fourth, before trust builds. And the person finally understands that you do care. Then they're willing to tell you what's really going on, what's really on their mind. Learn to ask questions that will build the trust and communication between you and those you work with. Learn to express, not impress. If you want to touch somebody, express sincerity from the heart. Impress builds a gulf. Express builds a bridge. When you want to enhance the rapport you have with someone, you need effective communication skills. You'll need the skills that'll help you work better with others to achieve their goals and achieve your goals. You need effective communication skills. Let me give you a few tips on good communication. Because to be able to get along well with others, to be able to work well with others, to be able to live well with others, you must be a good communicator. Number one, have something worth saying. Interest, fascination, sensitivity, and knowledge. Number two, now that you've got something worth saying, number two is say it well. And you've got to be able to translate it so it'll benefit someone. You must have a good delivery system for your substance and knowledge and awareness and understanding and experience. Learn to say it well. And here are some clues on saying it well. Number one, sincerity. The best communication occurs when both people are sincere, one sincerely wishing to learn or listen, and the other sincerely wishing to share. Number two in saying it well is repetition. Part of saying it well is simply practicing to say it well. Practice, practice, practice. Part of what I teach in sales training is practice. Practice. You start with something simple, and when you don't know much about what you're doing, practice is even more important. So, practice your presentation and your ability to communicate what you know. The people out there who say, "No, I wouldn't care for any," are just as valuable. Why? Because they took the time to let you practice your presentation. And especially when you're just getting started, you might want to pay them to listen to you practice while you stumble around. So, be thankful for the no's. Practice helps you develop skills. Skills make labor more valuable. If you just sell, you can make a living. If you skillfully sell, you can make a fortune. If you just talk, you can hold a family together. If you skillfully talk, you can build dreams and the future. The difference is skill. You can cut a tree down with a hammer, but it takes about 30 days. If you trade the hammer for an axe, you can cut the tree down in about 30 minutes. The difference between the 30 minutes and 30 days is the tool. And your best communication tool is your skill. So practice to get the skill of saying it well. Part of saying it well is sincerity. Now here's another part of saying it well. Brevity. Sometimes you don't need too much, just enough. The more you know, here's what I found out. The more you know, the briefer you can be. Because you can learn to make words more effective. Next is style. Part of saying it well is style. Be a student of style, a variety of styles. Then make sure you develop your own. Be a student, but develop your own. Don't be someone else. Let someone else influence you, but don't become them. Develop your own style. Here's another tip on saying it well, vocabulary. You've just got to have a good vocabulary to say it well. Vocabulary. We can only translate for other people with the tools called vocabulary. If you're lacking in vocabulary, then you're lacking in tools to describe some problem or some answer. Words, vocabulary. You can't communicate without them. And you can't communicate well without a defined vocabulary. Every time you come across a word that's new to you, what should you do? Look it up. Every time you're in a conversation and the other person uses a word that's new to you, look it up. Now, most of the time you can figure out the meaning of a new word by how it's used. But if you can't, make sure you hold your response until you know for sure. Vocabulary is a way of seeing. It gives us insight, and only with your present vocabulary can you see. You can't use tools you don't have to see, to create light, understanding, awareness, comprehension, perception, vision. You can only have as much vision as your present vocabulary will give you. And if you're limited in vocabulary, then you can't see very well. What if a person could only see the world through a little tiny hole? Now, vocabulary is also what we use as a tool to express what's going on in our heart, what's going on in our head. Translate our questions, translate our answers, our perceptions, what we see, to be able to say it. And I'm telling you, if you have a limited way of translating and expressing what's going on in your heart and what's going on in your head, you'll fall way behind. So you'd have twin problems without a good vocabulary. Number one, you wouldn't be able to see. Number two, you wouldn't be able to express. And your world would keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, not having the vision, not having the tools. Finally, you wouldn't need a place much bigger than 10 by 12 to live. Why? That's about as big as some people's world is. That's all they've got, this little narrow world, making mistakes every day. Why? They can't see. Getting it wrong every day. They can't comprehend. They can't understand. No tools with which to translate. For good communication, number one is having something good to say. Number two is saying it well. And number three is reading your audience. You've got to read what's going on between you and the people you're talking to. Should you say what you're saying a little softer? Should you say it a little stronger? Should you explain it more? Should you be more clear and concise? Should you quit? A lot of the decision-making that's going on during a conversation with someone depends on how well you can read, how well you can tell what's going on in the minds of those you're trying to reach. Doesn't matter if you're looking into the face of a child or the face of a colleague or 1,000 faces in an audience. You've got to read what's going on. You've got to pay attention. So let me give you some ways to read. The first one is you've got to read what you see. You've got to read what you see. Search the face of a child and see if you're coming across. See if they look perplexed. See if they're getting it. See if they can't get it. Body language tells us a lot. Look at how the people you're talking to are sitting, what they are doing with their hands, their eyes. A guy's got his arms crossed, legs crossed, chin tucked down and frowning. You've got your work cut out for you. This guy's not going to be easy to reach. The lady's standing up from behind her desk. You've got to hurry. She's not going to listen to much more. You've probably got to pick up the pace and get down to it. So the first one is read what you see. Here's the second one. Read what you hear. You've got to be a good listener to be a good communicator. Get some feedback. Listen. To be a good parent, you've got to be a good listener. To talk well, you've got to listen well. That's so valuable. Get the feedback. Now, what you hear may help you change gears. Be a little stronger. Be a little softer. Find a different illustration. This one isn't working. Search for another way to say it. Become sensitive to someone else's words, not just by preparing to talk when the other person's through. Listen. Pick up those signals that the feedback of words gives us. Now, here's the third way to read your audience, and that is to read how you feel. Emotional signals. You've got to learn to pick those up. Pick up those feelings. Women just seem to have this part built in. Men can learn it, but women have it. Woman says it doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel right. Man says, what does that mean? It doesn't feel right. She says it's something. He says something, something. What is this something? She says, I'm telling you, something doesn't feel right. Now, men can learn it, but women have it. Learn to read your emotion. Learn to read what others are feeling so you can adjust your communication, so you can adjust your approach, so you can get your message across, so you can communicate well.
One of my seminar participants told me this. He said, money is like food. When you have enough of it, you don't think about it at all. But when you are deprived of it for any period of time, you think of nothing else. More people are achieving financial independence and becoming self-made millionaires today at a faster rate than ever before. A great majority of self-made millionaires and even self-made billionaires are first. Generation success stories. This means they started their working lives with little or nothing and they earned it all from the first dollar. The fact that so many hundreds of thousands and millions of other people have gone from rags to riches in a single generation is ample proof that you can do it as well. You only need to learn how. It's really quite a simple thing to become a self-made millionaire. If you simply save $100 per month year in and year out from the age of 20 to the age of 65, and you invest that money in a well-managed mutual fund invested in the American stock market, you would earn an average of 10.8% per annum on your investment. At that rate, $100 per month would be worth more than $1,200,000 when you retire. The most successful people in every society are those with a long-time perspective. They develop a long-time horizon. They think and plan 10, 20, and even 40 years into the future. They then organize their daily and weekly activities in such a way that everything they do is consistent with the long-term goals they want to achieve. This is especially true with regard to achieving financial independence. You and everyone else have a series of goals, either clear or fuzzy. Each of these goals is organized in a hierarchy. Each of your goals is ranked consciously or unconsciously from your most important to your least important. The reason that people do not achieve financial independence is that, although it is a goal, it is not a primary goal. It is merely one of many goals that they think about from time to time. When it comes time to act or spend, there are other goals for immediate pleasure and gratification. For example, take precedence. It's only when you take the goal of financial independence and move it right up to the top of your hierarchy of values that you begin to get your financial life under control. Remember the great principle. You become what you think about most of the time. In thousands of interviews, researchers have discovered that self-made millionaires in the area of money think about financial independence most of the time. They organize their entire lives around saving and accumulating. They think continually about how they can earn or acquire more and better invest and deploy their savings. The fact is, you are not going to win the lottery. Unfortunately, there is no distant relative who is going to die and leave you a lot of money. You're not going to discover gold or make a lucky hit in the stock market. The only way that you're going to achieve financial independence is with a long-time perspective by saving and investing your money month after month and year after year until you have enough that you never have to worry about money again. For most people, money means freedom, one of the highest of all human values. It means the ability to be and do what you want and to buy the things you need without worrying about the cost. Freedom is a powerful driving force that has determined the course of human history. Is freedom one of your values? For many people, some of the values associated with money are security, independence, success, status, adventure, and even love, especially the love and respect of others. So what are your personal values with regard to money? Here's an important point. If you have negative values with regard to money, these values can sabotage you throughout your entire life. One of the smartest things that you can do for the rest of your life is to admire, respect, and look up to people who have achieved financial success. This is because you always move in the direction of that which you most admire and respect. The more you admire and respect financial success, the more likely you are to do the same things that financially successful people do. Eventually, you'll become the kind of person who achieves financial success yourself. Imagine that your financial life was perfect in every respect. Create a clear mental picture of your distant financial future as if your every financial dream had been realized. What does it look like? How much would you like to be worth when you retire or stop working? What kind of a lifestyle would you like to have at that time? How much will you have to save and invest every month, every year to reach your long-term financial goals? These are questions that most people seldom ask or answer. Imagine that you have no limitations on your long-term ability to achieve financial independence. Imagine that you have all the time and all the resources that you require. Imagine that you have all the knowledge and all the experience you need. Imagine that you have all the contacts and all the opportunities you could ask for. If you could design your financial life to be perfect in every way with no limitations, what would it look like? Imagine that you have finally achieved a net worth of $10 million. What would you do? How would you change your life if you were completely independent financially? Make up a dream list of every single thing you would want in your life, tangible and intangible, if you had all the money you would ever need. The greater clarity you have regarding your long-term financial future, the faster you will attract the people and resources that you will need to achieve it into your life, and the more rapidly you will realize your vision. In general, you should have 4 financial goals. First, you want to earn as much as you can. Second, you want to spend as little as you can. Third, you want to save and invest as much as possible. And fourth, you want to protect yourself against unexpected reversals and lawsuits. The achievement of each of these goals is very much under your control. Perhaps the best measure you can use if financial independence is your goal is to determine how much money you will need each month, each year, to live comfortably, and then calculate how long you could sustain your current lifestyle on your current savings. This number is called your run rate or your burn rate. This is a calculation of how long you can survive with what you have accumulated up to now. This is the best measure of your overall financial health. This is a great focal point. Set clear financial goals and targets for each part of your financial life, both for the short term and for the long term. Examine every expenditure in your life and look for ways to reduce your monthly living costs. Set a goal to cut your expenses by 10% or 20% over the next 90 days. Make cost control and cost cutting a regular part of your life, no matter how much you earn. Since you become what you think about most of the time, the more time you spend thinking about your money, the better you will become in terms of managing it. The first knowledge that you will require to achieve financial independence is the knowledge of exactly how much you are earning today, how much you are spending each month, and how much you are worth right now. You should keep a list of every dollar you spend and analyze your list regularly. The more attention you pay to your day-to-day spending, the smarter and more aware you will become regarding the amount of money flowing through your fingers. Here's a rule that will virtually guarantee that you become wealthy over the course of your working lifetime. Save and invest 50% of any increase that you earn in your salary or compensation for the rest of your career. You can still spend the other 50% of the increase on improving your standard of living, but resolve today to save half of every increase for the rest of your career. This discipline alone will assure that you achieve financial independence, and probably several years before you expect. Apply the 80-20 rule to your job every day. Identify the 20% of your tasks that account for 80% of the value of everything you do. Resolve to focus more and more of your attention on becoming better and better at those few activities that are worth more than all the rest. There are certain habits and behaviors that lead inevitably to financial success. The first and most important habit is for you to pay yourself first. As George Clason wrote in his classic book, The Richest Man in Babylon, a part of all you earn is yours to keep. Pay yourself first off the top. Your goal is to eventually save 10 to 20% of your income throughout your life. Your aim should be to put this amount away regularly, to invest it with experts, and to let it grow over time. If you cannot afford to save 10% of your income, begin by saving 1% of your income. Begin saving and investing even before you pay off your debts. Begin putting money away before you pay down the amounts that you owe. This is very important. By developing the habit of saving a certain percentage of what you earn off the top of every single paycheck, you will eventually change your entire attitude towards yourself and money. The most important habit you can develop to achieve financial independence is the habit of frugality. Carefully consider every expense before you make it. If possible, delay a large purchase for a day, a week, a month, or even longer. Take that time to think about it before you commit. Perhaps the most helpful habit of all is for you to learn to enjoy the very act of saving and investing. When you begin to look forward to every opportunity to put money away, you change your entire attitude toward money and investments. You begin to get tremendous pleasure and satisfaction from seeing your savings and investments grow over time. There are 4 activities that you should engage in every single day to guarantee that you achieve financial independence. The first is to carefully evaluate every expenditure before you make it. Delay every expenditure that you possibly can. Put it off until later, if you make it at all. The second thing that you should do is to set clear goals and targets for the amounts that you intend to earn and keep. Measure your results against these targets every week and every month. What gets measured gets done. The third activity is for you to look for ways to reduce your monthly expenditures and instead save the money. Cut out all non-essential expenses. Keep asking yourself, do I really need this? And if you don't buy it or don't spend it. Set it as a goal to reduce your monthly cost of living by as much as you can as quickly as possible. Remember, every dollar that you can save from your monthly expenses is an additional dollar that you can put into your financial freedom account. The fourth activity is for you to take every opportunity that you possibly can to increase your value, to increase your earning ability. Look for ways to upgrade your knowledge and skills. Concentrate on getting better at those activities that contribute the greatest value to yourself and your company. Become totally focused on making more and saving more every single day. Financial success is predictable. It has never been more possible for you to earn and keep more money than it is today. There are hundreds of thousands and even millions of self-made millionaires, all of whom started with nothing and who began using the practices and processes described in this session. Your job is to become one of them. Begin today.